Can you tell me why did you choose to come and fight in Ukraine?
First of all, defense of a sovereign nation that just got invaded. It's the right thing to do. And we can't have a war going on in the middle of Europe. If
Mhm.
we can't even have peace there, then, everything's gonna kind of fall apart.
When you say it's the right thing to do, how do you define that? What does that mean to you?
Everyone who is capable of helping, just from a human factor, if we are capable of helping people in need, and we have the skill set to do so, then we should do it. Somebody who is clearly at a disadvantage, weaker, and who's just being pushed around and whose things are being taken away from somebody who has more power, but who has no right to do that. Therefore, it is the right thing to do. Ukraine was just minding its own business. It was going the way that its people wanted to go. And somebody with a lot of guns and ammunition decided, yeah, you know what? No, we want this chunk of land, so fuck you, we're going to take it. And from a lot of the conflicts that have been going on in the past, like a lot of my American colleagues, when they talk about their past experiences, they are not sure that the war was something they should have been doing. So
Mhm.
invading Iraq, Afghanistan, here there is no question. We're defending a sovereign nation from an aggressor.
How does it feel to be a part of that?
There's not a lot of thought on that, I think. You're very in the moment, you're thinking about the problems that your team has, problems that are in your specific area of the front line. I mean, there's a lot of thought on what could happen in the future based on the outcome of the conflict. And this is something which I think a lot of people in the West don't understand. Manages to, walk away from this conflict with any kind of victory, any kind of positive outcome. Even just holding the territories they currently have is going to massively destabilize current state of
Yeah, I
security.
think you're right. It's teaching dictators that they can just get away with it and they can take what they want.
Russia is obviously crumbling. If NATO doesn't step up, it will show cracks in NATO as well. And then now all of a sudden, there is no longer going to be a fear of these big military alliances, and everything is just going to slip into chaos if there's no clear line defined right now.
I know you joined the French Foreign Legion. I haven't met too many people in Ukraine who've done that, actually. What made you choose that path?
I like to be very good at the things I do. The problem with joining my own nation's military at that point would have been to join a country which has very small experience in any conflicts and also all kinds of problems, which I didn't know at that time. Why would I try and join a military that is basically in shambles and where I'm not going to get the skills as well as if I would join the French Foreign Legion, provided I would be able to pass the training, the selection, all that kind of stuff. But if I would, I get better skills. And we're still on the same side, right? For the defense of Europe. So in my book, it was just a better way to go. I definitely liked that role because it just really feels good that you're able to intervene and, save people's lives.
How do you keep going when your job is a stressful, really tough one, and you see people die, you see people hurt?
I guess because I've seen a lot of different reactions of different people. It's weird for me because, especially in the moment, seeing these things don't really affect me as much, which I assume is not a good sign, but I just apply what I taught and then kind of keep on doing the job. There's no moment where you can just kind of shut off. You kind of have to just leave that mental focus. So maybe when the war ends, I'll have a different kind of outlook on it, and I'll think to back to all the horrible things that I've seen, and it might give that some more thought. But for right now, I'm still in parentheses in the mission. Fortunately, I've seen people break, Ukrainians, foreigners, um, in this war, and you never know when it's going to happen. You could be
Mhm.
all fine. You could go on the next mission. Something can happen. Your friend can get injured, or you could get injured, or even it could be a round that comes too close, and the most brave, the most solid fighter could break mentally.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that happen too, and it's a challenge for us and who we fund because we can't predict the future. And sometimes people can be fine, they can be great. And then later on we get contacted about all kinds of problems with them. And I don't really judge them for when that happens. Sometimes it's they went on one too many missions and that's enough.
You never know when it's going to happen to you, so I don't think we should judge people when it does happen to them, as long as they're honest about it. When people leave, a lot of people leave this country with bullshit excuses, and then they go back home and they make up all this crazy shit just to like excuse themselves why they left.
I agree. Actually, some of the people I admire the most are the people who contacted me and just said, I'm done or I'm not doing well. Like it's like that takes a lot of courage.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially because of the nature of the job. The most courage is the guys who come forward and say, hey, this is too much for me, or, hey, I can't do this anymore. And those guys usually come out and, they get help and it's good. Other guys who's, nobody ever hears from them again. Well, they obviously traumatized. They obviously left because they were scared of the artillery or something. They don't get help then, and they don't reach out to anybody anymore because they're ashamed. It's a lose-lose situation, really. But yeah, I didn't want to go too much on that.
Did you ever have a day where you just thought, I'm done. I want to go home. That's enough.
No specific day necessarily that I remember like that, but there's definitely been moments on missions where everything is planned out. And then the units we work with, they show up late, they show up with the wrong equipment. We go where we're supposed to. They tell us all of a sudden, no, we can't go, there's a minefield, or no, we can't do this. And you're sitting in some trench in the middle of nowhere with artillery going off everywhere. And you just think, well, all of this could have been avoided. If I do manage to get out of this alive, I'm just going to pack my shit and go home. But then, then the mission goes well and you don't. I don't know, it's weird, but I'm still here somehow.
Have you had any times where you thought, this is it, I'm not making it back?
There have been quite a few times where you're just in the middle of some Russian position and you continue doing your thing, but you're like, yeah, this is probably it. Or you hear a round whistle, and then it detonates near you, and you look down and you're like, how the fuck am I still alive? Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of moments of that. Some people have said, yeah, no, this is crazy, this is suicide missions, just because we're going and engaging the enemy. Like a lot of people come here and they see the war as it is, and they think that every offensive mission is a suicide mission. Our missions are planned from get-go. When's the best time to go where there's the least amount of drone activity, the least amount of artillery activity? When the enemy prone to not observe? When is the enemy gonna be off guard? When can we sneak past them? All that kind of stuff. In general, yes, there is a risk of dying. There's a large risk of dying in the war, but we always know that we've given our best to mitigate those risks, and we have some kind of backup. Yeah, all those factors combined kind of lead to a thing where it's still scary, but it's manageable to continue to work. And that's what we always tell the guys. Like, it's normal to be scared of artillery and everything, but don't let the fear consume you, impede you from doing your work and your missions. A lot of the people come to Ukraine and they think they can deal with this war the way that they've dealt with stuff in the past. And it's absolutely not true. But still, as long as we keep treating those people correctly and trying to build them up every time, that's going to create good guys. And then the long-term experienced guys are going to help Ukraine more.
How do you feel about your teammates? You're with these guys all the time in the worst conditions. You have to trust them with your life. How do you feel about that?
Here, there is no 20 years in the Marine Corps, you're constantly in the same company and you know everybody and their wives and their kids and stuff like that. Here, I'm used to from today to tomorrow, I work with somebody new, then I work with them for a while, and then, might be somebody else after that. In the Legion, it definitely happens a lot. We've lost a couple of guys. It's weird because when you lose somebody, all of a sudden you notice that all this time you've spent together, you've only been fighting, and there's actually no real bond. Somebody passes away, and then you have to deal with a family, and you notice all of a sudden, wow, I've never, I didn't even know this guy was married, or I didn't even know he had siblings, or all this kind of stuff, because it just never comes up. That does put a massive spotlight on the fact of how short and quickly built up these relationships are. Because of the intensity of the missions and the work, it feels like you've been doing this your whole life. But those moments have definitely been a kind of a shocker where you're like, oh shit, this person had his whole life. And you barely even talked about it with them. You barely even knew them because it's always just been work, 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 mission, mission, mission.
No, I totally get that because yeah, you might only know them for, a couple months, but the intensity of it is extreme. Have people ever told you that you're a hero?
I think so, yes. I mean, I don't have a
Mhm.
vivid memory of anybody specifically saying it. Well, a shitty moment, I guess, but when we go to the funeral, that being our guys or, our Ukrainian friends who we worked with who've fallen, that's what a lot of the civilians say. So it's not the greatest of memories. And then obviously we're not in front of cameras or interacting so much with the public that we get it
Yeah,
in
that makes
positive
sense.
environments. So I don't think it really
Mhm.
leaves that positive of a of a mark.
What's been your favorite thing in Ukraine?
My favorite thing. the experience, I guess. The answer for me is not like, oh yeah, borscht, like, oh, I like borscht, so that's the best thing in
Yeah.
Ukraine, or it's the experience of going through this. And I've had the privilege of having quite a long time in Ukraine, but even the people that have been here shortly had there's crazy, crazy adventures, the lives that have been saved. Yeah, okay, maybe that's the best thing in Ukraine.
Mhm.
Everyone on the front line deserves respect. Even in
Definitely.
areas that are quiet, or guys that are doing things there that are, like pushing the Russians a bit, that are working to put pressure, they're doing their job to avoid them
Yeah.
breaking through somewhere else.
Yeah. You have to have people everywhere. That's very true.
I mean, you probably see the difference in fundraisers that come out of
Oh, yeah.
Avdiivka
Yeah,
or that
definitely.
come out of some town in the middle of nowhere in the Kharkiv region.
Yeah, people need to recognize things to fundraise for. It's also tough because there's some things where maybe it's necessary, but it's like hard to explain why it's needed or not sexy or not cool. Like right now, I'm trying to get some people to focus on fundraising for drone jammers instead of drones because everybody wants to fund the drones. Those are really fun, but not the jammers because what even is that?
Yeah, exactly. And that was how it was. The big names, were getting all the attention.
Yeah. And I get it. It's hard to follow the war and get accurate information. There's a lot of blackouts and what they can cover and everything. So it's understandable that people don't always know. What do you think will be the hardest thing for people to understand? Just kind of like about what it's like for you to be there and fight in Ukraine. Is there a thing where it's like, unless you were here, you would just never get it?
Okay, maybe not the hardest, but there is something that springs to mind pretty quickly. And this is a concept of Ukraine as a war zone. I've talked to quite a few people and told them, hey, if you want to do this or that, you can just come to Ukraine. You can just go to Lviv or to Kiev or whatever. And like, oh, no, it's a war zone. It's like, it's not. Like, the front is in the east and the south. I don't think people have any idea how much of a great job Ukraine is doing of keeping this a completely conventional war. I mean, by all means, if there's going to be no more funding and front's going to collapse and it's going to turn into insurgency, then yes, the whole country is going to be a battlefield. Nobody wants that. But right now, civilians can live their life peacefully. Anywhere from, depending where you're at, 20 to 50 kilometers from the front line, all the way to Poland. From my perspective, I still think it's safer than being in Europe at the moment. People don't understand that the skies are being well defended. They could be better defended, and I think they
Mhm.
should be. But Ukraine is keeping Russia as well away from the civilians as humanly possible. They're doing everything they can, and people of Ukraine, to a large degree, can live on with their life. People just hear Ukraine and they think war zone. They should have that image in mind of the apartments being bombed because it's still unnecessary casualties. But what Ukraine is achieving is incredible.
I never really thought about it that way, actually. Did you ever expect you would be there this long?
No, not really. Um, the night I came into Ukraine at the start of the war, for me, it was mentally like, well, I'm dead now, basically, anyway, and every day that I'm here is just a bonus. Eventually, those days just became more and more and more, and somehow I'm still here.
I've heard this before that basically you just got to accept that you're already dead.
At the start, I came in just before the missile strike. After that, a lot of people left. I mean, we didn't have any casualties, but a lot of them packed their shit on the next day. I think
Yeah.
12 o'clock or so, the Ukrainians rolled up some buses and was like, okay, we obviously see that the majority is shitting their pants. Here's
Hmm.
some buses. If you want, they'll take you to the border. And the majority of people fucked off. At that point, that was the scariest thing that had ever happened in my life. And I could have gotten on the bus and left, or stay with it and do as much as I can. I mean, there hasn't been any doubt or any moment like that where I made that choice afterwards, but I've already made that choice at that moment.
I don't know. It's interesting to hear people talk about, why they came because we're all crazy to some extent. Like every single person who got involved in Ukraine was like, yes, war, sign me up, I'll go. All of us are crazy. You're not agreeing with me. Maybe you're not crazy.
I was thinking back to when the war started. Me and some friends were going to help his family out. We didn't have necessarily a plan. I mean, we had a plan of showing up with our kit, basically everything except rifles, and trying to make it to the outskirts and take them out. We were just going to show up, find a car, find weapons somewhere, pack them in the car, and get them the fuck out of there. So if that isn't crazy, then I don't know what is. So yeah, actually thinking back about it, basically, yeah.
It really is insane. Yeah, you meet the good crazy and the bad crazy in Ukraine too.
When you said you were a foreigner at the start of a war, you were a god. Like, oh shit, this guy came to help. He comes from a NATO military. He's going to train all our guys. He's going to do all this stuff. The Ukrainians were so kind-hearted and good-willing and trusted everybody. They were super appreciative of anybody being there and took the help. But there's so many people who came in and fucked around and abused it. Now you go to people and, oh, hey, I'm a foreigner. They're like, ah, cool story. Deep down, you know, okay, they were probably already fucked over, but
Yeah, every single legitimate good foreign volunteer has struggled with that because there's just so many of them that were terrible and it made everybody look bad.
and then they go back and they talk shit at home as well. That's a whole different story.
So one frustration I know I've told you that this before that I have is, you know, most of the prominent people that have gotten famous from the war have kind of been the douchebags and the fake ones. If you were going to tell people about the foreign fighters you work with, like the ones that aren't in the news, what are they like?
We all got a fucked up sense of humor for a start.
That is
Um,
true. That is true.
Humble. That's a very big indicator if people are professional and are able to do their work. You know, all those people who turn out to be fakers and who run away and all that stuff, they're the loudest. They're the biggest and the best. And that's not how you win this war. It's not how you can win this war. Me and a couple of guys, we're not gonna come here and win the war. We're coming here to do what we can to help. And on some days, that might be taking a position, that might be getting information, it might be sniping. On some days, that might just be carrying out a casualty. And on some days, that might just be flying a drone. And if he needs me to carry an ammo box from point A to point B, if that helps and there's nothing better to do, I'm going to go do it. The guys in our group understand that, and they don't go around talking all the big shit. They just go and do the work. And sometimes it's not pretty, and sometimes there's no glory to it. But at the end of the day, we can all sit down and have a good laugh. But yeah, I think that's the two big factors: is be humble and have a good sense of humor. Because a lot of the times that's the only way to deal with just crack jokes and talk about stupid shit.
I've noticed one thing I've kind of grown to love and occasionally hate about you guys is like you can find anything funny and there's no limits to what might be. And sometimes that's been amazing, but other times I'm just like, oh Lord, if anyone saw this conversation, I would be in so much trouble.
Some of our commanders would bother us with like the most needless shit, like, oh, where is this paper or where is this useless item or whatever, just before a mission. Oh, it's super important. And he'd just go up to them and be like, hey, we're all gonna die tonight, so you don't have to worry about it. And then we just jump in the car and fuck off. And obviously they not find it hilarious at all, but we're just laughing our asses off. A lot of people obviously won't get that humor, but those jokes are flying around a lot, and they have to, because this situation has to be taken with some kind of humor, because otherwise we'd just be fucking going insane.
For me, it's been so weird and so tough because, you know, like I work in academia in my day job and I'm in a completely different environment. And sometimes I've caught myself being like, fuck this. So I'm like, I can't talk over here. I'm going to get myself in trouble. What do you think about people with no military experience who want to come and fight? Is that helpful?
Across the board, I say it's not a good idea, but I will also say that I have seen certain civilians outperform the majority of the military people here. But those guys are extremely rare. I still can recommend it because I know that if I say, oh yeah, sure, come over, 100 people will show up, 100 civilians, 100 will do the training course, get deployed, and 95 will leave, which means that these resources all wasted. If a person knows they will definitely stay for, let's say, 6 months minimum, even if they get scared of the artillery, they'll still dig positions, then yes. But unfortunately, most of the time, it's not the case. You can't just have this one skill or two and think you're cut out for this war. Oh, I did the Boy Scouts, so I can navigate. Oh, I've been in the gym, so I'm really physically fit. There's a lot more to it. This guy was a competitive shooter before. It's like, that guy can probably shoot on a range better than anybody in our team. Yeah, but get in gear, drive to the front, jump out, walk 5 kilometers in at night, fall on your ass 10 times, and then try and shoot at somebody after you're exhausted.
Yeah, I know. I just had somebody contact me today. It was like, oh, I'm a hunter. I could be a sniper. I'm like, what? No.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing. Like, even the professional snipers have difficulties getting to the line and finding suitable positions from where they can shoot, and they have to go out multiple times just to find a position where they won't get immediately bombed to shit. That all that work that may possibly lead to some kind of result, the bare minimum requirement for that is being a professional. I mean, some people do. Some people get really lucky. They come here, fuck all. They're here for a week. 3 Russians run right in front of their gun. They shoot them. They go back home. They're a war hero.
What are the things people could do to help you?
If this would be addressed to everybody, the general person, I would say donate to a trusted organization like Protect the Volunteer, because there's not really anything you can do here. It's better to just stay at home and donate to somewhere where you know the money is being used right. For those people who are capable of fighting, come here and help defend this country now, because that way you won't have to do it again. And to everybody else, I can just say, well, whatever they do, take a good hard look at your government and make sure that you support the people who want to help Ukraine win. That's all I can say. And once this war is over, and hopefully the sooner the better, everybody can go back to doing what they think is best for their country. Right now, if this problem doesn't get solved here in Ukraine, then there will be a lot more problems. And when Zelensky or so says that in a speech, a lot of people take that as kind of a threat. It's not a threat. It's the harsh truth. We can stop this here, or it's going to escalate more. And I hope for everybody that it stops here.
I hope so too, but I don't think it will. It doesn't. We didn't do enough to stop it.
Well, it does certainly look that way. And Germany signed security guarantees with Ukraine, 1.1 billion, big numbers, big smiles. Oh, we're doing so much. And then you look at the security guarantees, projects for 26, 27. It's too late. And it's not possible. It's not about Ukraine running out of people, but who's the first to go and defend the country? Who's the people who've lost their lives so far? It's the people who love their country, the good people who will happily go and fight for their country. It's the artists, the singers, and the teachers. Those are the people who volunteer to come and fight. People with family, with sons and daughters. They are the first ones to essentially die out.
Don't answer this if you can't answer it, but are you feeling the effects of like the slowing Western support and lack of ammunition, those sorts of things?
Every account from every individual soldier is always going to be anecdotal on these subjects. What I see happening in Avdiivka now, to a certain degree, the only reason can be that kind of shortage. I've seen how we've defended installations before and how artillery would work to defend these locations. The only reason that I can see for this happening right now is a shortage in shells. Ukraine is making up for that shortage with FPV drones, kind of substituting artillery for FPV drones. It's working well now. For how long can it work well? Who knows? But it's not just how much ground is lost, it's how much people die, basically. Because if we know they're attacking a position, and let's say we want to give that position up because it's not worth defending, it's not worth losing guys. If we can't fire any shells, and there's 5 guys who just have to run back across an open field, and 4 of them get gunned down because there's no cover, then we lose 4 guys. If we can shoot to suppress, shoot to delay, and those guys can get out, maybe we destroy the entire attacking force if we're lucky, but at best case scenario, those guys can withdraw without taking casualties. And same, we lost the position, but we didn't lose guys.
What should Europe do?
Number one, well, they should have 2 years ago ramped up artillery production. They should have done that way earlier. They should have given significantly more equipment to Ukraine, because we are never going to use that equipment. If we are going to use that equipment, something has terribly gone wrong. I understand there's a certain bare minimum that we need for the international interests and border defense, but the majority of the stuff literally we could hand away right now. All the APCs, IFVs, all the stuff that doesn't have sophisticated technology, all the old AFVs are just pieces of metal. Give them. And the third thing is domesticate drone production. Everything is being produced in China. If they come out officially saying we are on Russia's side and we're no longer going to export these drone parts to the West, they're going to actually do it. Not like the shitty sanctions we're putting out. They're going to actually stop the West from acquiring those parts. And we're fucked. We can't produce drones tomorrow. They need to domesticate drone production right now. In Europe, in the US, where it's safe and where it's not going to be shut off.
I agree with you, and it's scary. We've just let this happen. And I would have thought COVID would have taught us a lesson of like when China shut down, people are like, oh, how do we produce things? And apparently we didn't learn. How does it feel fighting in Ukraine and risking your life and seeing support dwindle? What's it feel like from that side?
There's people for Russia, there's people who don't really care about the conflict, and there's people for Ukraine. Thankfully, we have a lot more people supporting Ukraine, and this is just my personal opinion. I don't think anybody is really pro-Russia. I think there is a lot of internal criticism towards the current government. In the US, in Germany, in France, and the UK, there's been so many domestic problems in all these countries over the last decade. It's an easy divide to exploit, and being pro-Russia is an easy excuse to kind of make that divide bigger. It splits the people, and all of a sudden you can polarize it and use it for your own advance. And a lot of political parties are doing it. You know, it's a strength and a problem. In Russia, Putin says, oh, this guy disagrees with me, well, he's going to fucking die tomorrow. And there's no resistance and everything can continue the way he wants it. In Europe, if we want to help Ukraine, we all have to sit on a table and everybody has to listen to what the other person has to say. And at the end of the day, everyone has to be on the same page. It's crazy if you think about it, and it's unfortunate that our political system works that way, and that Russia can literally buy a couple of these people off to just put a break in the whole process. But that's what we are about. We are about free speech. We are about democracy. That's what we're defending. But it's just unfortunate how easy that system is exploitable by our enemies.
Why do you think it's worth defending with your life?
It's not just necessarily worth defending with my life. Like, everybody is defending this, and hopefully everyone sees the end of the conflict and is able to live in that better world. But unfortunately, a lot of people are going to die in the process. I've spoken with a lot of Ukrainians about this, and a large number of them have said, you're here today helping me defend my country. And if tomorrow your country will have a problem, I will be there too. And thank you for being here. And if every conflict in the world was like that, then I think there would be very few conflicts. It's also why I think that if on day one, 1 million volunteers would have stood at Ukraine's doorstep and said, we will defend Ukraine, that the Russians would have packed their shit and left right away. If we would always solidly stand with the defender at the moment of their need, then there would be a lot less conflicts. So if I'm here to help the good people, then I hope the good people will help me and my country and my family in my time of need.